had no choice but to record this video in this attire, in this look. And then I thought for about 2 minutes, how can this be the Crone video? How is this relevant to the Crone? How can I make it relevant to the Crone? And actually, it just took knowing what the video is going to be about, what I'm going to be talking about, to actually connect with this look. So Crone is obviously, archetypally fairy tales, often has a hood. It's, usually black as opposed to white, but we are 23rd century and I'm a good witch, so that works. But also hermit is one of the archetypes that I will be touching on. And that's also, the hood type of look. So it'll do. It'll have to do. Right, so I want to talk to you about being a crone archetype, astrologically speaking, and through my own experience. So I was actually for a while not even sure when I could call myself a crone. I certainly wasn't sure interesting combination of words. But I wasn't sure how I felt about being one. I have natural being Pluto in Virgo, and the South Node in Virgo, and the stellium in Virgo, Jupiter, and Jupiter rather. There is that innate sense of modesty. I mean, I'm in so many ways the opposite of modest. But when you scratch the surface deep down, I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I know what I know, but I'm not going to claim that I have some wisdom for anyone else, right? So there was always that, and even now I don't feel 100% good with that to claim that I have wisdom that is, the truth or something, Although I don't think Crone is necessarily, yeah, maybe. Anyway, so that was my kind of when am I going to be a Crone? How will I know I'm a Crone? When does one become a Crone? And then the other week, I came across an article which I'll link below here. It's by, it's a link there, so you'll see it's an author. She's an author who writes like a writer's coach. Like she coaches writers and writes books about writing and novel and character arcs. So that's what that article was about, like different characters for novels and stories and their arc, their development arc, their journey, right? Hero's journey for each of these. And so I was Googling about Crone and that article came up and it's wonderful. So I got her book as well, a couple of books anyway. But you can read more about it. But basically, there was something that she said in there, which is that Crone, I'm going to paraphrase it, but basically Crone doesn't look into the future anymore. She is rooted in the present. And not something I'll tell you in a moment what exactly. And if you've been with me on my email, on my Instagram, you'll know what I'm talking about. But that was like just someone congealed. Like, I think that's a coagula process in alchemy and shadow work. I think it is. Or is it the opposite of coagula? Anyway, congealed, like they just come together. Everything just got very clear and intense and dense, like a little nugget of wisdom, a la Crone, right? As a Crone would offer it to you. That I am a Crone, that actually I have been in that archetype since 2020. In fact, 2018. 2018, let's say. Yeah, 2018, end of 20, maybe 2017. No, a lie, maybe even 2016. Okay, so I was initiated into it. And I say this, in 2016, I went to a wilderness vigil. You know what that is? It's like you go to the woods and you spend 4 days alone, fasting, just water. It was a water fast. And then you stay up for 24 hours on the last day, the fourth day, or night. And then you come back, return to the village where my mentor and the guide and the group of other guides and mentors were there waiting for us, and they prepped us. So it's a whole 10-day experience, and you have only 4 days. Anyway, of course, I mean, life-changing to say the least. And that was my initiation without me even knowing or even thinking like that, wanting that, or even caring, right? It's just I went in there to to face my fears and some of my fears and all that. So that was in 2016, and then that kind of triggered some life events that were like life-changing. Life continues to change, it never stops. But basically, that triggered my probably darkest night of the soul that I experienced in 2017 and 2018. And it was on one hand horrific, on another hand, I'd go through it tomorrow again. It was just the most lush, rich, deep, dark experience I've had. And I was in the underworld, proper underworld, my own underworld, basically, my own hell. And that's the where Crone resides. And at a time when I came out eventually in 2018, yeah, I should have really done my timeline. I don't like to prepare for these things because they don't flow, and when I'm prepared, it's just wrong, not for me. It doesn't work for me. So you have to flow with me on my tangents. So in 2019, after 2018, I started to come back. I was not the same Maya. It was like through and through. I mean, people did not like me. Not all, obviously, people, but many. And not in a horrible way, but they were just like, it wasn't easy, it wasn't pleasant. Anyway, that's a maybe different video, but what I'm getting at is that in 2019, I started to, for the first time ever, so 2019 is actually me being 50. Yeah, 1969, 50. That was my 50th birthday. And after it, or just during it, around that year, right? My birthday is May, so sometime in 2019, before my birthday a little bit possibly, I decided to do astrology professionally, or rather to start a business, to offer readings, to put myself, to come out of that astrology closet. Age 50. Now I have a whole astrology story behind why it's taken me this long and why the archetype really doesn't sit fully with me, as you know, the archetype, the identity of astrologer. Hence me being astrology crone. I'm really a crone that is using astrology as a language to share my life experience. Life wisdom, right? A la crone. And so I do that. I create now. What I do, I create, and most of you who've been here with me a while, you know me under that name, Darker Materials. And it was like, it fitted me like a glove. It still does. In fact, yeah. I'll be going back to it in a way, not. Anyway, that will still be a major piece of my work. And so I create that Darker Materials brand, website, Instagram, and I start offering astrology readings, various kinds, and offer astrology school, and I write and I do all kinds of, I have presentations. I was part of, you can find my videos on Evolutionary Astrology YouTube channel as well, and I'll link them below just so you kind of, they're interesting, and then my whole YouTube channel is full of the content that was Darker Materials, that was spurned by that, born out of starting Darker Materials, launching Darker Materials. And I thought I was launching a business. I thought I was looking into the future. I thought I was like creating my, next thing, right? And in a way I was, right? But I'm not fully, that's not the full story. So that happened, and then that lasted, then we had 2020, the Pluto-Saturn conjunction in Capricorn, which was exactly trining my natal Pluto. And then we had Saturn in 2021, Saturn Jupiter conjunction Aquarius. I'm still, at that point, so 2021 2022, end of 2021, which is when I think Saturn conjunct Jupiter in Aquarius happened, and certainly throughout 2022, I start to just store, like, when the car is just like, it kind of starts coughing, the engine, like, doesn't really run smoothly anymore, moving the car forward. That's how I felt. I was like just couldn't. It was just like I go a little bit and then I'm like, it just stops, right? Stalls. And I even announced that astrology, I will withdraw from astrology, I will take a sabbatical, and I did. I didn't work as an astrologer, and I changed at the end of that, end of 2022, I changed my brand and I changed it again and all that. And during 2022, rather in January 2022, so the end of 2021 and 2022, when all of this started to change, that I'm all of a sudden like, haven't got the same, I can't keep up the momentum that I started. Transits wise, it was Saturn squaring my Sun. And it's a last quarter square. And also when Jupiter's squared, maybe I'm mixing the years here. Is it 2020 that Jupiter was conjunct, Saturn was conjunct Jupiter in Aquarius? Both were relevant because, for one simple reason, and I spoke about this in my Creating Legacy, which I might also link here. Both Saturn squaring my Sun and Saturn squaring my Saturn, since Saturn has been in Aquarius, were last quarter squares. And what they are and what they do, they're like the final checklist for your second Saturn return, which I thought was the marker, time marker, right? Timeline marker for becoming a crone, which I still think it has, it's like maybe the seal of approval happens. I'll tell you about it in 5 years' time. But what I didn't think and realize is that the initiation that happened for me and what astrologically that marker was Chiron Return. And I realized that as I've been reading this recently, like just the other week, and done some more research on Crone Archetype, because where many were talking about age 50, and I was like, age 50 is Chiron Return. And then what essentially Crone is a time when we have lived a full life. Every life is full, even if you feel you wasted it. It's full of waste, and waste is compost, and compost is a fertilizer. So nothing is ever wasted. In fact, I should make a reel or the short of this because it's beautiful and true, and I hope it heals us, even like a little something in your heart just hearing this, because it's true, right? So what I was being initiated into is the Crone Archetype, but I didn't realize because and I thought that I was doing the future thing, that I was looking to create a business, but really what my darker materials was, and I was speaking in those terms, I just didn't connect it, was me congealing, compiling my life's work, my life, what I lived, and what it's like the wisdom, and which is what the crone is in the healthiest expression. So the hermit archetype, there are two, like the shadow expressions of the crone, hermit, and the wicked witch or the devil, maybe. I'm thinking tarot cards. Both can be the positive. They can feed good stuff, nutrients to the crone as she matures, as she walks her crone life and path. But they also have wisdom. So hermit is like the passive rejection of life and death. So it's like you just give up, right? So I wasn't doing that. But what I was, so the positive integration of hermit into the crone, hermit archetype into the crone archetype, is you withdraw. And so that's what I mean by the initiation. So I went to the wilderness with vigil. So that's me withdrawing. I'm a hermit. I'm a number 9 in numerology, which is the hermit archetype. I'm also, my tarot birthday card is the hermit and the moon. So very much of that kind of crone archetype I feel forever. Moon in Capricorn as well, Saturn on the ascendant. So me going into the woods and then being plunged into my own underworld through events that I wanted, even though I at the time maybe said I didn't want, but I did really, was me doing the hermit, but in a good way. So you need to withdraw. One needs to withdraw in order to start to make sense and make peace with losses, and and that was probably the biggest piece of that dark night of the soul, that the loss of all kinds of things, and that's another video. But it was coming to terms with that with my life up until that point, and the fact that I wasn't, so that was 2017, 2016. Well, 2016 was the vigil, and then 2017 was when it all crashed and I burnt and underworld, descent into my underworld. I wasn't still 50, but Chiron was already was already there in Aries. And anyway, so that, as he approaches the conjunction, which is a return, transiting Chiron to my natal Chiron, that the approach is the most intense times that you are having of that transit of that archetype, right? So I was doing the hermit in a good way. So I was withdrawing and just mourning. Oh, it was major grief and mourning going on for the whole year, 2 years actually. And no one died, just so many identities of mine died. So much of me died. And so anyway, so that was me doing the hermit. And so when I came out to do the darker materials, I thought at the time I was doing, like I say, future. Yeah, I'm back. I can, build my new life or just do something new, my next chapter, all that kind of future oriented. But really, I was looking back and I was compiling what I've known. And everything I created for darker materials was like that. It was just like it's already in me. I'm just like writing it down. I'm just putting it on paper or on a website or in a course or whatever. I mean, I wrote my school, which was amazing, and it will still be running in some format, but I'll talk about that more sometime this year because I had some clarity around how actually to do it better. But still, it poured out of me because it was my life. It was my life lived astrologically. So it was walking through the 12 houses of one's chart. As I've done so many times, and as I've learned living astrologically what that means when you have, each house, and when you have transits and you have planets in there and all this, right? Anyway, and it just poured out of me, and it's just so much. And it was just like that, like a easy work, because it wasn't future. It wasn't me building something from fresh. It was me compiling what I have learned and offering it as guidance, as wisdom to younger generations. And most people there were Pluto in Scorpio, like throughout, and there was some others a bit old as well, but meaning young people, right? Younger people. And so where was I going with this? So that's the Chiron archetype, meaning that was all happening around my Chiron return, and Saturn was doing not a lot, hence, but also it's 50 years, right? Age 50 that many say that one becomes a crone or is kind of enters that stage of life. And if you think of Chiron as an archetype, it's all about, like, he spent his whole life trying to heal, trying to become whole, basically, which is another way of saying individuating, which is our journey is essentially a journey with individuation. And so when you get your Chiron return, it's like it's been around your whole chart and collected all those pebbles of wisdoms and Chiron is wound. Wherever we have Chiron, it's like we are so acutely hypersensitive to everything about that thing that Chiron is transiting by conjunction, most intensely always, and then opposition and squares. And so it's been through the whole chart by the time you get your Chiron return. So you have like experienced all of you and all of life that is meant for you in the most like hypersensitive sense, and you have hopefully made good meaning from it, and you have learned good stuff that you can now share and help others as they walk that same treacherous path. And then the Saturn piece is, so the square happened a bit later, the last quarter square to my Saturn and to my Sun, and that's close enough-ish in my chart. So and Sun is one's identity and all that. And Saturn is about maturation, of course. So it's almost like, for me at least, this is why I'm not saying this is the process in terms of the order of things, the sequence of events might not be applicable to you. For me, Chiron return happened. No, in fact, I lie. Chiron return always happens before Saturn return, second Saturn return. Of course it does. So forget about that. It's actually a correct sequence. And then the Saturn return, second return, which I always thought was the initiation to Crone, but actually no, now having lived through this and considered it astrologically, I correct myself. But the Saturn second return is therefore a time where you become the Crone. It's like you are now initiated into this journey, and you are now, I mean, I'm not feeling frantic, but it's like I said in my creating legacy video, where I'm like I'm all of a sudden given this job. It's like all clear on paper, like you have a job description, like what I'm supposed to do. Now I know what I'm going to do. It's a lot to do, and it's dark materials and astrology as part of my legacy is definitely a big chunk, but it's not all of it. And so I'm like, and I feel the second Saturn return will be the time to have that produced, and so Saturn is, like I say, a maturation. So this is maturing my, but maturation also in the sense of giving something form, because the ready, like the form that is ready to be made visible. And so if you think of a fruit to be made, maybe that's not the best word to use the metaphor with fruit, the form that is ready to be seen for what it is, to be utilized for what it's meant to be utilized for. So if you think of a fruit that matures and becomes ripe, because that the point of fruit is to, well, a point of fruit is to be eaten, right? So we don't eat not ripe fruit. I imagine I don't, because it's not good for my stomach. So, right, you see, the maturation is also giving something form, ripening, and this is now ready to be shown to the world, to be eaten or whatever, right? To feed the world with it. And so Saturn is that archetype, the maturation and the giving form to something, but because it's Saturn, it's like it's final, it's like solid, it's like, so you better make sure that what you're forming, what you're putting into form has, because it will outlive you. It's correct, it's right, it's truthful, it's yours, you're happy with it, it does what it needs to do. So you need to do a great job, because it will last forever. So you might want to make sure that it's the best that you can do, yeah? Because once you do it, you can't change it, kind of thing. I mean, of course, in reality you can, but you can have an edition number 2, right? If it's a book, which will be in my case. So it could be a second, what's the edition, right? It's second edition or something. But you would want to do that maybe by the time third Saturn return happens. I might have a second edition of those books. But yeah, okay. So I'm conscious of time, and I don't want to go too much over 20 minutes, usually, typically. So yeah. So I don't know. Let me know how you feel about if you are a Crone, how old you are, and if you feel the same relevance of Chiron return versus second Saturn return, and how the two mark critical points in becoming a Crone, and basically everything I've shared. So I'd love to hear about that in the comments. And if there's anything from here that you would like me to expand on more, talk a little bit about more, or you want me to clarify, as always, please let me know, because I want to create content that makes sense to you and that it's useful to you within the realm and the kind of constraints or other criteria of my own, which is life lived astrologically. So not astrology in the sense of like what's my Venus sign, but like this is the life. What do you think this is, astrologically speaking? Okay, thank you.